Dr. Eric James, Executive Director of Field Ready, to provide a presentation on the project Protecting the Frontline. And Eric, please feel free to hand over straight to NeedsList and Ben Siegel, who will complement the presentation. So not everyone needs to hear from me between each speaker. Thank you, and over to you, Eric.
Thank you, Charlene.
We'll show your slide in a moment.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So hi, everyone. I'm Eric James, the Executive Director of Field Ready. And I'd like to thank everyone here for participating in the opportunity for us to share what we've been working on. And I'd like to first thank Charlene and the Response Innovation Lab and her team. Max, good to see you. So great partnering with you on this. I'd like to thank the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation and Director Patrick. All the things you said are quite exciting. I'm sure we have lots to talk about in the future. I'd like to thank the NeedsList and the Humanitarian OpenStreetMaps team, which you'll hear about more as the presentations go, and my colleagues, Kat Sellers, who leads our COVID response project, and Andrew will be leading some sessions as we go forward. I'm wondering if we see the slides yet.
Sorry, small technical lag getting here.
Okay, no problem. I don't want to get too far ahead, but I'll drag that out. So our project's called Protecting the Frontline, and you'll see the three logos that I just mentioned there. It's really combined effort, and this is supported by the Humanitarian Grand Challenge from Grand Challenges Canada, which is a multi-donor fund focused on humanitarian relief. The challenge that we're facing, pandemic, of course, is very well known by everyone. We're all experiencing it together, and that's why it's so important that multi-level efforts like ours are essential for us combating. In fact, I was just reading this morning's headline and how the pandemic continues to draw heavy resources and sack supply chains around the world, and we're all experiencing that. So our project focuses on 4 countries. In addition to Uganda, we have what's going on in Bangladesh, Iraq, and Kenya. You see there, and this project focuses on those who are most vulnerable if they've been forcibly displaced or affected by conflict. And importantly, it draws on a number of different innovations. I'll just introduce them in this talk, and you'll hear much more about them as the presentations continue. This is Field Ready's first time working in Uganda, and we hope it's the start of many good things to come, and working with the likes of Director Patrick. Next slide, please. So this project really brings together 3 different innovations. Field Ready focuses on making things localizing manufacturing. Humanitarian OpenStreetMaps team focus on mapping, and NeedsList brings together supply and demand, and you'll get a presentation from them just after this, actually. And what we realized together is that we don't need to send everything in. The aid community relies too heavily on international and globalized supply chains, when in fact there's a lot of talent and resources locally, and that should be better tapped into. And what we need to do is to be able to convene and bring groups together to map what capacities there are and to make them locally without relying on these globalized supply chains. So that's exactly what our project does. And this is really the first time we're able to do this together. Next slide, please. So to do that, as I mentioned, we have a number of initiatives. In fact, this project really started when we all introduced ourselves about 1.5 years ago through the Humanitarian Grand Challenge. And then about 1 year ago, as it became obvious that the pandemic would reach the proportions it is, we put in a combined proposal. And part of that is bringing together this mapping and manufacturing capacity. So we know where those are, and you can tap into knowledge and actually contribute by going to makeitlocal.org. It's also available through our own website, and you see some of the screenshots there. So again, you'll get demonstration on this, but it's great to see this coming together, actually taking place there in the field. Next slide, please. So what will people actually be making? And those are the that are actually most, and you see some examples there. And it could be these, or it could be, in fact, the things that are needed, anything to arrest the transmission of COVID. I think one important thing is that it uses different technologies, including 3D sensing, and that's something that Field Ready has pioneered, but we'd like to see utilized as much as possible, depending on what's available there and as things go forward. Next slide, please. Now, together, I'll just mention globally that the impact of this approach is pretty massive, and what we found is that it's cheaper, faster, and better over time. So huge reductions in terms of cost and time savings. But most importantly, it supports local capacity, as I mentioned, working with business, and ultimately more lives are saved, suffering is reduced, and the ability to communities and those who are engaged in this sector are able to bounce back more quickly, or hopefully keep that curve very flat. So I'm going to keep this short, and I'll end it right there. I want to say thank you to everyone. It's too bad we're not in person, but I hope to be back in Uganda at some point during this trip and meeting some of you. Thank you. I'll pass that over to NeedsList.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben. I'm the project lead / project director at NeedsList. And just to kind of echo what Eric said, I just want to thank everyone for having us. Both Response Innovation Lab and the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation. We're really happy to be here, and also really happy to kind of be continuing some of our work in Uganda, where we've been working with Field Ready and other organizations for now about 2.5 years, actually, and we'll go through a little bit of that in a bit. So just a kind of a quick introduction to NeedsList. We are a public benefit corporation based in the United States as well as in Canada. And if we jump to the next slide, what we really focus on is developing a new set of tools for kind of what we view as the new era of crisis. So if we move to the next one, I'm going to move through this pretty quickly. What we really believe in is that software and solutions have to be locally powered, collaborative, grounded in dignity, and tech-enabled to an extent. So we've spent the last about 4 years really focusing on learning from different organizations working on the field and collaboratively designing and producing technology that they can use to meet their own needs on the ground. In 2016, this started out as a very simple kind of wedding registry-like tool, which has been used across the globe, mostly to meet refugee needs. But over the last few years, we've actually expanded into working into more health and climate crisis, as well as just the refugee context. And if we move into the next slide, this is where we're going to stay for a little bit. So this is kind of what Eric was just talking about. So what we really have focused on over the last couple of years at NeedsList is building a set of tools that we call Respond Local, which is really focused on coordinating a local response to a crisis, whether that's a refugee crisis, a community resilience issue, climate crisis, or for most of the last year, we've actually been focused on COVID-19, just like just about everyone in the world has. And how we ended up with Respond Local was one of the things we learned from 2016 through about 2019 was in the response to a crisis on the ground. We knew that there were needs coming in from the ground. We knew that we were able to aggregate refugee needs or climate crisis needs directly from organizations working with recipients on the ground. But we also kept getting kind of reached out to and approached by private sector organizations or large NGOs who had a large quantity of items that they wanted to offer. Things like shovels in response to a hurricane or face masks in response to a pandemic. We just knew that there were organizations, whether they're from the private sector in the local region, international private sector organizations, large NGOs, or governments who had lots of items that they wanted to offer in response to a crisis, but they didn't necessarily know how to get involved or engage directly. So we kind of took that and developed this tool that we call Respond Local, which is really focused on identifying not just the needs assessment on the ground, but also focused on kind of activating the local and international private sector so that they're able to post what offers they have. So we've actually been using Respond Local in Uganda for about a year now, including our work with Field Ready. And if we jump to the next slide, what we're really, really excited about with the Field Ready project and working with Field Ready and the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team is kind of this new model of how we can support the local economy and local manufacturers in responding to a crisis. Over the past few years, one of the things that we've really learned is international response is obviously extraordinarily slow at times, doesn't always meet the right needs on the ground. And we also run into various bureaucratic or logistical difficulties in importing goods into a new region. So what we've been kind of modeling in Uganda with Field Ready and the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team for the last couple of months is how can we actually kind of coordinate around mapping local manufacturers, which Hot will speak about in a bit, and focusing on identifying who has the capabilities to produce what types of items, and then mapping that up with needs assessment on the ground. So how can we have organizations in real time identifying what their recipients or kind of partners need? How can they post them, and how can they immediately have those needs identified and matched to local manufacturers with the capabilities of producing? In the context of Uganda, we've been working with local organizations, the Lira NGO Forum and the African Youth Action Network for about 2 years across a number of projects. And we've kind of matched them up with Field Ready to help the project on the ground get kicked off. To date in Uganda, we've met about 10,000 unique needs, mostly PPE focused through the Field Ready project that have actually been produced within Uganda by a number of Ugandan manufacturers. And one thing I think that for us has been really interesting about this is we've seen even in our own experience, this model of locally sourcing and mapping manufacturing aid, we've seen a severe a drastic increase in the quality and efficiency of delivery. So as opposed to taking a couple of months from when a need has been posted or a need has been assessed to when an item can be delivered, I think we can actually say that on average so far of those 10,000 needs, I think it's been about a week to 2 weeks from when the needs have been assessed to when they've actually been delivered, and then the manufacturing has happened and they've been dropped off at the organization that quickly. So actually our kind of to kick off the project, that's Kat in the middle with our partners in Lira. I actually don't know if any of our partners from Lira are on the call. I don't think that they are, but Kat kind of was there, couple of weeks ago, just over a month ago, and actually kind of as we were launching the project in Uganda was able to really kind of model for the first time this local aid delivery and manufacturing, and all took place within about a week. So we're really pleased to see kind of how quick some of that has been going, and how nice it's been to participate with all of our partners in the field and see some of the success that the needs assessment has had. That's a really quick overview. That's just about all of our time.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Ben. I'm sure the participants have questions because it's quite different ways of doing things. So feel free to go ahead and drop questions in the chat box if you have any. And also Ben or any of your colleagues on the call, if you want to add some links in the chat box so people can look at your tool and website online, etc., don't hesitate.